Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome back to Devil May Cry 2. And, yeah, now we come inside Arius' towers. And, yeah, this is very much where the demonic ritual is going down, and, in a similar vein to Devil May Cry 1, where you had to bring, well, the underworld closer to the human world just for the sake of gaining access and defeating your demonic overlords. Well, this is very much one and the same here. Again, it is implied that both Dante and Lucia do enter this building at different times, so yeah, both of which are working to, well, sort of make their way closer to Arius' inner sanctum in the underworld, but yeah, in this case, yeah, pretty much requires a bit of a fuckery, so for the sake of just trying to make sure that both of these characters get their limelight in the sun, yeah, you're going to be seeing a bit of a character switching mid-commentary between Dante and Lucia, because both of which do have some unique one of which has a unique boss fight, really. That being Dante having another round against Bulwark, and Lucia getting her bout against, well, where you're intended to get your boss fight against the Trismagia in both incarnations of the story, but yeah, needless to say, you are going to be seeing, you know, quite a fair bit throughout this part, and again, if I can say anything about the level first and foremost, is that again, apart from being, well, very much a sort of ascending a tower, yeah, it actually manages to again, hit a lot of the same sort of thematics about, you know, grace and beauty, but, well, divine putridity lurking beneath the surface. I mean, you can already sort of see the signs of it already down here, but, yeah, you will get a little bit of a greater look at it. You know, as you see Arius's, you know, refined, richly designed looking architecture gradually become perverted by the demonic imagery that, again, is a symbol of his greed, as his Japanese symbolism is a wont to do. And of course, in fighting game tradition, because, you know, we did still have the game designers of Street Fighter and Power Stone on hand. Yes, the good old lift sequence. Oh god, even in Devil May Cry, you cannot escape. But yeah, with the Chronos Art equipped to our being, time is slowing down. And therefore, we can pretty much just lay at the smackdown as we defeat all these enemies. Although, admittedly, on the hard mode, they do technically have the advantage with that little Crash Bandicoot spin, so yeah, who am I to judge, really? They can lay the smackdown on us just as easily as we can on them. Well, more or less. But, yeah, if you're trying to go for the Showtime ranking while you're in the lift, be forewarned, because, yeah, if you go up against the doors when the lift stops, you're pretty much leaving, and it'll throw off your groove. But needless to say, as you can see right here, in the uncorrupted portions of Arius' tower, yeah, very nice-looking designs. It's, rather fancy. I don't know why, but it does also remind me of the Chrysler building for some reason, but not really too sure why. I guess maybe the architecture feels like a very sort of Nouveau Gothic, for lack of a better phrase. But in any case, so yeah, what we're going to be doing here is that, again, it's not quite as labyrinthian as you might think, but again, there are a lot of aspects and places to explore, and indeed also a few things that we pick up. One that you might have noticed during the Trismagia boss fight is that we get one of Dante's final firearm weapons, that being the submachine guns, which are either around here or might be, well, someplace a little bit later that I forgot to pick up or forgot to show off because dual characters, thank nomine, pick your poison, really. But yeah, I think it might be a bit later on and you won't be seeing it, but yeah, the submachine guns were intended to be a weapon from the first Devil May Cry game. More explicitly, a weapon that Tony Redgrave would have used, so I imagine that probably would have been like a... Well, I guess a weapon somewhat similar in nature to, you know, the AK-47 or the dual-wielding pistols from Code Veronica, but... Quist, really. In any case, so, yeah, what we're after, you know, as we feed the lion, is basically the sacrilege hearts. By the way, by putting these sacrilege hearts inside, you know, the mouths of the lions, then indeed we come one step closer to the underworld.
Delicious sacrilege heart. It generates distortion. Brings us closer to the demon world.
And that in turn, by putting the sacrilege hearts into their, well, appropriate places, will eventually end up, gradually bringing this world closer to the demon realm, which unfortunately is what we need in order to defeat, well, Arius, really. So, yeah, don't really have much of a choice here, but yes indeed, now Lucia enters the fray. Oh no, the scary demon curse seal walls. But yeah, I don't know. I was really just sort of including this for continuity's sake, really, so, yeah, whatever. In any case, do I have any more trivia?
Well, trivia's drying up, and I ain't got much else to talk about.
Well, I do technically, and I suppose, again, I did also sort of bring this up beforehand with, in regards to Arius, but, yeah, his history going unexplained. And, that is kind of throughout a lot of Devil May Cry 2 material, because, again, whether because of the game's reception or just, I guess maybe because the developers themselves feel like, you know, it was an embarrassing, stressful situation that they'd rather not relive. Yeah, you don't really get too much of Devil May Cry 2 outside of, like, maybe one or two references here and there. And, I mean, even then, I do really mean just, like, one small thing here and there, like, you know, the Nocturne appearing in episode 1 of the 2007 DMC anime, and, you know, in turn, a couple of other things here and there, like, the scientist from Devil May Cry 4, Argus, he used to work for Arius, but then worked for, Sanctus, because, fuck it, why not? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, specifically in Arius' case, though, I am kind of, you know, wishing for a bit more backstory, but I can kind of fathom that we probably won't get anything like that until, well, I suppose either a Devil May Cry 2 remake or one that revisits the Vita Marley setting, I suppose. Or, I guess potentially a Devil May Cry 0, if it implies that, you know, Arius was there during the war between, you know, the Protectorate and, you know, the followers of Argosax, I suppose. Yeah, and once again, to comment on the enemy dynamics of normal mode. Yeah, you will be noticing that a lot of the enemy attack patterns are also slow and they don't have their 3-hit combo plus their, you know, additional attack patterns like, you know, the spinning blades of death. So, again, like, I mean, again, I don't blame them for wanting to make differential sort of dynamics for different difficulty modes. It's just kind of a shame, really, that, well, things sort of panned out as they did, really. But in any case, back with the Dante. With the sacrilege hard in place, Lucia is enveloped in the transformation of the underworld. Enter, if you dare. And yeah, you can see right here, similar to the corruption that you witness outside in the south part of town, yes, in turn you also begin to see Arius' once wonderful building corrupted by the greed within his heart. And thus, we have our final battle against Bolverk, the Demon Knight of Argosax versus the Son of Sparda. Yeah, but yeah, he's actually a boss fight that does, you know, get put through his paces in regards to how you utilize the Chronos Heart. To kind of talk about anything else, really, though, again, it does sort of slow down Freki and Gary from disrupting your targeting reticle, and, well, in turn, really, yeah, makes it a little bit more of a fairer boss fight where you can turn the tables on him. Admittedly, though, to once again talk about Bolverk, I do kind of wish that the game did sort of reflect, you know, maybe some of the rivalry stuff, like, you know, kind of similar to Dante and Nilo Angelo in the first game, you know, I guess without the whole Virgil revelation, but I don't know, in keeping with Dante's characterization here as more of like a, you know, an honorable demon knight, I don't know, I feel like it would have been cool to have that sort of like a, you know, mano a mano, you know, foe who fights by the rules, sort of levels of respect kind of characterization for Bolverk specifically, because it seems like that's the idea that they wanted to go, but they don't really give Bolverk much of a speaking role, but the fact that they haven't returned does seem to imply that that's, well, what he wants to have with Dante, I guess in making up for lost time between Bolverk's last battle with Sparda, but, it's neither here nor there in this case. To talk about anything else in regards to Bolverk's design, kind of in fitting with, you know, the mythological inspiration of, you know, Bolverk being, you know, a stand-in for Odin in human guise. Yeah, I believe in his Bolverk form, Odin actually had a bit of a fucked up eye, which you can actually see with Bolverk with a scar above his right eye, I believe, unless my perspective is fucking with me. But yeah, nice bit of design, really cool looking design actually. It does make me wish that we could see Bolverk again as a, you know, a returning foe, but actually, no, I was gonna say that again, he ends up getting killed off here, but honestly, if fucking Phantom can return, then why not Bolverk? So, yeah. Well, then again, I suppose him being, you know, a Blood Knight loyal to Argosax, I suppose that does kind of put a kink in the plans, but I don't know, I mean, again, if, you know, Mundus can promise that he'll return someday, why not Argosax, I suppose? But then again, maybe that's just specifically reserved for people who eat the Clyforth roots with more Devil May Cry 5 mythologizing, so who knows really. But in any case, so, Bolverk, we had some fun, we sang some sea shanties, and we did some dining and dancing in the hell, but now it is time to die. But I will miss you, my friend, to the end. Fare thee well, Skullduggery Pleasant. We shall miss you, as I miss you. But yeah, by defeating Bolverk right there, you do end up getting another Sacrilege Heart, and what Lucia gets if you're playing through her scenario is basically just another enemy rush where you can pick up the Sacrilege Heart and go on your merry way. After you defeat all the enemies, Curse Seal, Wall breaks, and bada bing, you do the thing. Which, again, does go to further credence to imply that Bolverk was a Dante exclusive enemy, if only because of the history he had with Sparta. And why they didn't have the two interact in a sort of conversation kind of means is just kind of saddening, really. But again, whether that's due to development troubles or anything else, I'll let you be the judge. But in the meantime, that'll pretty much be it for Dante, for the time being. So in the meantime, though, let's head back with Lucia, as we enter the corrupted world and continue on our merry way.
You fool! Everyone is destined to die.
Lucia, ever the philosopher. We're all born to die, dude. But yeah, another boss fight against the Trismagia. Unique lines of dialogue, I figured I might as well show it off, but then again, I suppose it does also sort of show, compared to, well, Dante specifically, that I guess even the Trismagia, much in the same vein as Arius, also considers Lucia to be, well, yeah, very much just sort of an artificial creation, a mannequin, for the lack of a better phrase, and therefore not really worth analysing apart from anyone who passes this point is destined to die, which I guess does make the Trismagia a bodyguard by means of psychologist in some aspects, but I don't know, does add a really cool nature to the guy. And again, speaking of bosses that could make a return in future Devil May Cry games, I'm surprised that the Trismagia never really did so, you know, as like an overall punisher, you know, for those who trespass on demonic lands, really. I don't know, it seems like a really cool sort of, you know, demon to use in a sort of philosophy kind of way, but yeah, we are pretty much fully pimped out with Lucia, you know, and normal mode does make it a little bit easier, and while Lucia doesn't have a Martian Devil trigger, before you ask, yeah, she can, you know, when she has the opportunity, utilize her Divine Anger to really cleave the boss's health in half, so I'd say that she does have an easier time, not just specifically because of normal mode, but because of the fact that her attacks can reach longer distances. But that's neither here nor there in this case. So again, it is going to be a bit of a shorter boss fight compared to Dante that did force me to bring out the Martian Devil trigger, but yeah, needless to say, like, again, if you're unprepared for this and you're just going through, Devil May Cry 2 was like, yes, well, you see, it's a bit of a game for babies, press the fire button to win, am I right? Yeah, well, I mean, this is very much going to be a bit of your wake-up call, and that won't stop here, because, yeah, the boss fights actually start proving their mettle, which, again, does also lead credence to my theory that, again, if you want to impress people with your video game, you know, your first impression and the lasting impression is what people are going to remember at the end of the day. And as a result of that, yeah, the game actually does surprisingly bring its A material to, well, oh, I wasted my Divine Anger. I'm so sad. But yeah, it does begin to bring its A game by the time of, you know, its final boss fight, so it does end relatively on its strongest note. It's just that, I guess it was that first impression and a majority of the game that didn't really sell people on DMC2. By the way, I forgot to talk about anything else in terms of the boss arena. I swear to... Well, again, I'm not going to say that it took influence from it, but I swear to God this whole little stained glass arena is giving me vibes of Kingdom Hearts, really. Yeah, again, particularly that area that Sora ends up, first of all, with the Station of Awakening, so... Yes, indeed, Lucia in Kingdom Hearts, blam. Yes, indeed, soon she's gonna fight the Heartless and then the Nobodies. And everything's just gonna be super. Wonder who she has in her heart, or if it's gonna be shattered.
And then she become like a Ventus. And I don't know why I'm doing a voice like Don Vito Corleone. How about we put a horse's head in Arius's bed?
But in any case, so, that's pretty much the end, as we know it, and I feel fine as we throw our knives. But in any case, say goodnight, Trismagia. Wowzers, who would have thought that the same guy could die twice to the two different demons, really. Oh well. But in any case, onwards to the elevator, and surprisingly, whether because of lack of time or anything else, the elevators remain surprisingly unharmed throughout all this demonic interference. So yeah, your house might be infested with demons, your hotel, your building of office, wherever, but don't worry, standard safety functions and lifts will all work just fine. Yeah, I mean, they might break down or suffer in case of fire, but don't worry, demonic invasion? The elevators have got you covered. Oh, dearie me. But, in any case, we've just about excised all that we have to see of this, little tower, Argosax, Arius, whatever your poison is. They may in fact become one of the same, even. But yeah, it's about time we made tracks for the central office and get this show on the road. After all, it's showtime.
Now, I'll absorb his power. I will become an all-powerful immortal. What? What's going on?
Is there a problem?
You! Is that the medallia? You switched them?
A false coin for a false god. Showtime.
There you go. You see that little trick that Dante pulled, showing that he still has some of his cheeky humor behind him? Even if a wee bit downplayed, but, yeah, you might be noticing a bit of a difference in characterization of Arius going from, you know, a calm and calculated villain to, well, basically sounding like he just dropped, you know, a fuckload of cocaine. Yeah, basically, that isn't necessarily to do with It's No taking over, really, and, you know, doing the whole also wacky villains of Devil May Cry games that we see nowadays. No, instead, it's actually the influence of Argosax the Chaos, pretty much playing havoc on Arius' mind as he's pretty much absorbed Argosax into his being. And, yeah, that isn't exactly the full Argosax powers we're seeing right now, but, you know what, you'll see in the final part. But in the meantime, though, what we have to contend with is, well, yeah, the secretaries. Basically, you're fighting Lucia, all her abilities in tow. I guess the only exception of which being the Devil Trigger abilities, but then again I wouldn't put it past these enemies to have a Devil Trigger ability, as they do in well, again if you play through the must-die mode, where enemies after a certain period of time eventually enter into their Devil Trigger state, which does make this boss fight a lot harder than it otherwise should be. But yeah, because of the fact that you're pretty much facing a facsimile of Lucia, yeah, it does actually make this fight quite a bit harder. Particularly in regards to the fact that, yeah, again, you'd still have Arius pretty much doing a bit of pip damage, smoking a cigar, doing whatever else, as was typical in his boss fight, but, yeah, you pretty much have... Oh god, I'm seeing double. 4 Lucias attacking Dante at once, which is going to whittle down your health something fierce, so... Again, while it is very much another boss fight in the case of, oh, it's like Freki and Gary distracting your targeting reticle, compared to, you know, actually hitting the boss and engaging it that way. I will say that comparatively so, again, the enemies do have some interesting dynamics to really sort of play with, and, yeah, I mean, again, if you do focus your attention purely on, you know, Arius, you can very much take him down fairly easily, but it's, well, I mean... the reason why I'm taking on the secretaries and really just sort of wasting time is primarily because, well, you know, we don't technically get, like, any rival battles against Lucia, so what better time than now to really sort of showcase it against, well, our enemies, I guess, and, you know, pay the secretaries their dues. I mean, after all, they are just as deadly at scheduling business meetings as they are cleaving you head from toe, so, yeah, leave it to Arius, he certainly has taste. But yeah, all that aside though, as I peer outside my window, fearful of the scariness of outside. Yeah, this was admittedly a bit to my cost, because I end up taking on these enemies longer than I otherwise should, and yeah, basically gives them an opportunity to basically whittle down my health, and thus, I must rely on the Martian Devil Trigger. But I mean, again, that's not quite as big of a problem as it otherwise is to me, because again, it means I'm just showcasing an aspect of the game, and again, to reiterate, if you want to activate the Martian Devil Trigger, you need to make sure that you've basically got a sliver of health left, and you can tell because the health bar turns from green to red when you're, you know, in absolute danger mode. And then, when you press the Devil Trigger button, you pretty much launch into your Martian Devil Trigger. And again, provided that you don't prolong it with, you know, Devil Stars or whatever from the menu, you can pretty much run out rather quickly, and again, using some of your super moves, such as the Laser Beam attack, you know, an AoE area clear out, or, you know, even utilizing some other abilities like your Buzzsaw attack, will pretty much drain your Devil Trigger rather quickly, so, again, it is very much a one-time save in an emergency if you really need it, but, yeah, needless to say, it is a rather cool ability. Kind of one that I'm saddened didn't end up getting, like, a must-die mode reward. Like, again, instead of maybe a costume, maybe you could have unlocked, you know, the Martian Devil Trigger as, like, a standard ability. Because, I mean, again, when you complete the must-die mode, all you really get is, well, you know, Devil May Cry 1 Dante outfit, and that's pretty much it. Which is a bit of a disappointment compared to the first game, where you at least got Super Dante, which basically gave you infinite Devil Trigger power, which was basically the game's way of saying, you know what, you completed the hardest difficulty mode in the game, go nuts. But, yeah, I suppose that's neither here nor there in this case. Playing with Martian Devil Trigger on its own would have been fun, but then again, Devil May Cry 5 would eventually answer that call by having Dante unlock it as a legitimate game mechanic, and, yeah, actually made it into a rather cool mechanic, really, so, yeah. Hooray for future games realizing potential. But yeah, there isn't really too much else to contend with at this stage. It's basically just the Jomasteras, and yeah. I guess at this stage, since I did deal with both Lucias, I guess I was intending on just trying to showcase the Martian Devil Trigger mode so I can pretty much cleave Arius in half, so yeah. Unfortunately though, when he does get knocked down, he does have like a few seconds of none or you can't hit me phases of his fight, so yeah, that's a little bit balls, but yeah. Also, I do believe that you do need to have some Devil Trigger power available to you in order to utilize the Martian Devil Trigger mode, so yeah, you do sort of need to be acutely aware of and, you know, have power and actually in order to actually utilize it, but yeah, it's neither here nor there in this case. So, again, with the secretaries out of the way, it's pretty much just the Jomasteras, which are fodder at this stage, even if some of the more powerful fodder of its Mysteria ilk, but yeah, either way, Arius is pretty much your main target, and while he might just lazily shoot at you, well, again, he has a reason for that. He's empowered with the power of Argosax, he's... well, again, he's empowered with Argosax, but the ritual didn't quite go as planned, so, yeah, because of Dante switching out the medallia for his double-sided coin, yeah, things are about to get a little bit fucked up, as you'll be seeing in the next part. But on that note, I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it numerical, and next time on the Devil May Cry 2 commentary, we finish this. Goodbye.
My dream! My life! I was going
King? Yeah. Here's your crown.